Yeah, the serial killer in the chat says, "We believe in you, Bryan. You can still get Halloween Day 3 in before midnight." Serial killer, normally I would tell you that your faith is misplaced. However, today, I think you have nailed it. I've already got everything set up for a stream immediately after PSVR Gamescast Live. Wes, how's it going, man?
Awesome, dude. But I'm excited for you. Can I ask what we're playing tonight, or is that going to be a surprise?
You can ask. It is subject to change because, I want it to be fun for me too, not just for people watching. So
Sure.
oh wow, motorcycles on my end. I think that's a new one. So I'm currently planning on playing Five Nights at Freddy's VR Help Wanted, but it's very seldom that I want to play Five Nights. I think it's terrifying. I know that's a divisive statement, and I just want to play something after this that I'm excited to play. And currently, I'm excited to play that, but things may change.
That's another one on my backlog. I think as we have our discussion today, Bryan, about PlayStation VR horror games, you're going to be surprised at the relatively large number of them that I still haven't played, and this is one of them.
That's amazing. There's a big.
It don't look scary to me, dude. It does not look scary. It don't look fun. Maybe it's different in the headset.
Yeah, it is.
But it don't look very good.
Yeah, it is. Five Nights is terrifying because, like, for the most part, like for a lot of the core games, you can't move. Like, you're just kind of locked in place, and so like it's not like you can run away from danger. And I think that's what scares me the most. But I don't know. Like, it's a little bit of a mixed bag because they are mini games for the most part, and some of the mini games are fun, some of them are not, some of them are scary, and some of them are less scary. I'd be interested to hear your opinion. There's the opinion of it out there is very, very, very mixed. Some people absolutely love it, and some people absolutely hate it. Some people think it's terrifying, and some people are like, this isn't scary at all. It relies too much on jump scares, which I also believe it does.
That's me. Yeah, I don't like a lot of jump scares. They're not scary when you're expecting them.
Nick Milo in the chat, of course, forever the Bryan Paul contrarian says Five Nights is not scary, Wes. Don't let Bryan fool you. It's more annoying than anything. Well, it's only annoying if you keep dying, Nick. If you don't keep dying, you don't keep getting the jump scare. Just saying.
Good point.
Wes, we are 7 goddamn minutes into the show. Maybe we should get off this title screen and start the actual show. Let's do it, man. GameCat Photo Nutter in the chat. Don't worry, we'll start the show eventually, I swear. GameCat Photo Nutter in the chat says, "What if there's no sirens outside? Really? What if it was just Silent Hill on my end? That would be.
It could be. It could be like Here They Lie. I had sirens on my end last night when I was streaming it. I didn't realize this. There are certain pictures on the wall in the game. And if you get like nose to nose with them, sirens start to bleed into your audio. I've never noticed it before, but we discovered this last night.
Interesting. All sorts of Here They Lie questions about that. But in the meantime, this is PSVR Gamescast Live. We film live every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here, 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. We do it live for your oral pleasure. Oral pleasure. Sure, I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it's way funnier this way. My name is Bryan Paul from PSVR Without Parole. This channel that you're watching right here, and this gentleman over here, deep in the Here They Lie subways, is Wes Dillon from Virtual Strangers.
Yeah, we're actually in the old city, the red, on our way to the red light district, as you can see. Man, I didn't realize like how bad. I mean, I guess I did realize how badly I want to remaster for this thing. But as I was preparing for yesterday's stream, I found my way into the Here They Lie ArtStation sites, which ArtStation, if you're not unaware, is a website dedicated to digital art, and a lot of game developers go on there to post their concept stuff. And to see these scenes that I'm so familiar with in full, crisp, like high definition, It just made my mouth start watering. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it would be really nice to be able to play that game without awful turning options and blinders and blur and the use of analog sticks. I mean, yeah. I know 10 Gentlemen Games doesn't exist in any kind of recognizable form anymore, but it would be really, really nice if somebody could make that happen for PSVR too.
Yeah, I would assume Tangent Games still owns the rights to the game, so it would fall on them to do a remaster. The cool thing is they don't need the Tangentleman proper to remaster it. They could do that with any team that has any kind of VR experience. Now, for what it's worth, a large number of the people that are on that team that made this game are making another horror game right now in a new studio. So that's probably the one thing that I'm more excited about than anything, although we don't know yet whether or not it's going to support VR.
Hybrid games, Wes. Hybrid
games.
Let's fucking hope so. And I think eventually Here They Lie did become a flat screen game as well. So I do think that lesson learned kind of thing, where it's like, hey, if you want to make sure that you recoup your losses on this game, that you make it available on the flat screen as well. But we want to make sure that it's also playable in the best possible way. And that, God, seriously, this boom stand just fucking blows, man. It really does. It's got some sort of erectile dysfunction, and it just doesn't stay up when I need it to. But that's what happens when you get into your 40s, Wes.
Well, Brian, they say if it stays up for longer than 4 hours, you need to contact technical support.
They do say that. Although I've never had any complaints. Wes, we've got so much stuff to talk about on the show today, but let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping first. If you're out there and this is your first time watching, where the fuck have you been for the last 6 years? You've got so many games to get caught up on, but also join our Discord. Click the link in the description below. That is where these conversations happen 24/7. And make sure you also subscribe to this guy over here, Wes Dillon, at Virtual Strangers. Our good friends over there constantly playing the stuff on PC, VR, and Quest so that we don't fucking have to. It makes our lives so much easier. We only have to play good stuff. That was shots fired, Wes, at the Quest and PC VR.
Well, for what it's worth, this week, the only PSVR stuff on the menu this week. We're not even fucking with all that other BS. We're doing Here They Lie. We're doing Dreams. Right after the show, I'm going in the Dreams. We're going to see if their Halloween thing's worth a shit this year. It was really good last year, so hopefully it is.
You're not going to like this, Wes.
Oh, no.
Their Dreams thing this year sucks. And not because I played it, but because it doesn't even support PSVR.
So there's no VR support in the Dreams? Oh, shit.
Somebody in the chat, we got a lot of big Dreams cats in the chat. Please correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I know, it does not support PSVR. So I'm sorry to be the one to bear bad news.
We're going to have to change it up on the fly then, because I only went with 2 titles this week. And if one of them doesn't support VR, then we're going to have to play something else, I think.
Have you played Pressure, Chapter 2, or 1 even, in Dreams?
Honestly, I don't frequent Dreams a lot. Okay. I have went in on a couple of occasions and played recommendations from you and AJ that are horror related. So that sounds familiar. Probably played that. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah. I definitely recommend it. I've only played Chapter 1 so far, but I mean, if Chapter 2 is anywhere near as good as Chapter 1, highly recommend it. It has some Bioshock vibes. It's definitely on the creepy side. Definitely one of the more polished, I don't know if polished is the right word, but definitely more complete Dreams experience. It feels like an actual game. Really good stuff. Thank you, GB, and anyone else who said this. Yes, it does not support VR at all. So sorry, Wes.
Well, maybe we'll revisit The Exorcist Legion. We were going to do that last week, and we ended up canceling the show last week. So, not canceling. I mean, we canceled when my internet failed, but maybe we'll do that. I know you got into that one yesterday, right?
I did. It did in part, and I had fun for a little while. I think that game is super scary when it's working properly, and then when the jank kicks in, it suddenly becomes far less fun.
Still janky on PSVR, I assume then?
Yep, very janky. The first 3 chapters worked almost flawlessly. Oh no, that's not true. The end of Chapter 3 I had weird issues with, and then Chapter 4 I'm pretty sure I hit a game-breaking bug where like the next thing just didn't trigger the way it was supposed to. So it was all this scary noise, and they had blocked me in the morgue, and then nothing triggered, nothing would happen. And I always try to take the blame first. Wait, Twitcher's telling me that Pressure no longer has VR support. What is going on? It had great VR support. Why would you, dear Dreams creator, why did you do that? Why did you pull VR support from your game? What is that? What is going on?
So depressed. I am so fucking depressed, Brian. VR is dead again. Can you believe it?
Dreams just killed it. God damn.
I mean, we had Zuckerberg last week basically saying that the enthusiasm is waning for VR. And I don't know why that could be. Possibly when you release a $1,500 product, maybe people might not be so enthusiastic about it. But now this, first that, and now this, Brian, I'm so depressed.
Yep. Absolutely. What my favorite thing about the Quest Pro though is that is how many people are still developing games for it, and content creators out there being like, hey, are you making games for the Pro? Like, it just doesn't. When the core messaging is this is not for gamers, then why do I see a tweet from Synth Riders being like, hey, our game is now available on Quest Pro with all sorts of enhancements? And it's like, okay.
What it is, it's PS4 Pro with a $1,500 price tag on it, basically.
I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't even really know what to say. I'm like, I'm glad the developers are supporting it. I would hate if any gamer out there bought this thing and then we're like, where the fuck are my enhancements? I would hate that for any gamer who spent that much money and didn't get anything out of it. So I'm glad it's being supported, but it's just this messaging problem is terrible over there. It's a mess.
By the way, on a side note, how fucked up is it that this enterprise product is getting full-on support from Synth Riders and we still don't have multiplayer?
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. We don't even talk about Synth Riders over here anymore. Anytime AJ says synth, I immediately cut his mic. And then no one ever knows that the second word in that sentence was riders. We just stare at AJ blankly as we pretend we have connection problems.
Well, we love Synth Riders over here. They just sent me an awesome t-shirt. So you guys are okay in my book.
They're not sending jack shit over here. They're like, we're really sorry about everything. It's like, we promise it'll be better next gen. No, don't send the t-shirt to Bryan, not until PSVR 2 gets here. I don't get shit, man. I don't get shit from anybody. Like, everybody got this awesome Sin Studio packet from with the logo and the hat.
I didn't get that one either.
Right, and then for obvious reasons, I didn't get any of the After the Fall merch because.
Yeah, me either. I gotta admit, In Dreams has been great to us.
Yeah.
Resolution Games has been great to us. Outside of that, like, I've got to be that guy. Like, where can I buy your merch? Can I get that T-shirt somewhere? I'll pay for it. And then sometimes they'll send me one, and sometimes they don't. That's how I got the Synth Riders thing. I'm like, show me your merch store, I'll buy one. And they're like, don't worry about it. Sign this NDA. Let's start a new agreement, and then we'll send you a T-shirt. Send it on over. We'll do that.
Nice. Yeah. Usually I don't really care about this stuff at all. Like, I don't want this stuff. I mean, like, I'll just wear black T-shirts and whatever. I don't care that much about like game merch, and I especially don't care about getting free stuff from developers because there's like a weird thing with that, like, especially anytime someone asks me to do paid content. They're like, hey, we'll give you $1,000 to make a video on this game, and I'm like, no, just you send me the game, and I'll review it, and that will be the beginning and end of our relationship. Like, that's kind of like what Without Parole was founded on. Like, I don't need support from developers. You just send me your game, I'll review it, and that's the end of the story. And so there always feels like there's this, when I'm trying to remember who sent me stuff, like Shell Games sent me a pack for I Expect You to Die 2, like, after I reviewed it. For whatever reason, Fast Travel Games sent me a pack for Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife after I reviewed it, and I'm like, I don't need this stuff. It just sits like in a cardboard box on top of my bookshelves. I'm like, I don't actually want this stuff. Like, it feels weird. It feels wrong to accept gifts, but I guess if the review's already out there and I've already made my verdict, I guess it's all right. I guess.
Dude, that's funny. I think they're trying to buy your love, Brian, because like I consider fast travel games among our very best friends, like our earliest supporters on our channel.
Same.
Fast travel games, but I didn't get any fucking Wraith package, and I've reviewed their game well, so maybe they're just trying to buy your love.
No, I don't think so. I feel very Andreas Juliuson and I, we go way back, all the way back to the beginning of the channel, and we reviewed Apex Construct. We loved Apex Construct. I think it's been mildly downhill from them since then. But anyway, I do want to tackle a question here in the chat. Ian Marsh says, Brian, do you feel cheated having to use the move controllers all this time? No. In fact, I've. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to love the new controllers that we get. The Sense controllers are going to be amazing, but I also don't hate the move controllers like so many people do. It took a little while to get used to the control scheme and using turn buttons and holding the move button and pointing it to walk. But you do that for 6 years, man. It becomes second nature. I don't feel cheated. I just feel like PSVR 2 is going to be a bigger upgrade for me and a lot of the PSVR 1 faithful than it will for a lot of the PC gamers out there and a lot of the Quest gamers out there. Because not only are we getting this massive visual upgrade, we're also getting controllers that we should have had fucking 5 years ago, right? There's a petition out there, Wes, maybe you remember this, but I petitioned Sony to give us analog stick move controllers like in year one of PSVR, and it never really gained much traction, and obviously Sony did jack shit about that. So, yep.
And it didn't seem like such a big deal at the time, because I agree, you get used to the move controllers after a while, and even now, with me playing a lot less PSVR than I used to, still it's like riding a bicycle. When I pick it up, I don't even have to think about it. And something a lot of people don't really talk about with their issues with PSVR and the tracking, 95% of that can be resolved through camera placement. And yes, it sucks to have to move your camera around, but you can certainly prepare for that. But with regards to the thumbstick deal, I don't think it really hurt so much, in PSVR's heyday. I think where it really has started to hurt is over the last year to 2 years, because now no one's supporting the platform anymore. And I have to think if we had modern VR controllers, that there would have been a lot better support in the latter stages of the life cycle.
I love to agree with you, but I don't at all. I don't think it's ever been about the controllers. I think it's been about being tied to the OG PS4, which is horribly underpowered. And despite the fact that it's even the OG PS4 is more powerful than a Quest 2, you see games on Quest 2 looking better than the OG, and that just shows you how much more difficult it is to program for a PlayStation 4, a VR game for a PS4, than it is for a Quest 2. Some shit's just easier in some places than others. And I think that's where all the problems came from. So we've heard from so many developers over the last 5 years being like, we tried and we couldn't make it happen. Right? And or the game was too blurry to, we didn't want to have to put it out there. We didn't want to sacrifice all of this stuff and give you a subpar version of our game. So hopefully all those games do make it to PSVR 2 eventually.
That's something else too. People talk about back compatibility and why aren't we getting it? I think a lot of that has to do with the move controllers as well. It's not like Rift moving from one generation to the next, where they can just kind of build an emulator into the software that automatically moves everything over. All the games have to be reworked by hand, and I think that's why we're getting remasters, which in the long term could be a good thing.
Yeah. I think as long as we get a majority of the games, as long as we get a majority of the games remastered for PSVR 2, it won't be the worst thing ever. And as long as most developers give us that free upgrade that we're hoping for, we'll see how it all pans out, though. Of course. All right, look at
Tangent Games. We're talking to you.
Who are we talking to?
Tangent Games.
Oh, the former Tangentleman people.
That's right.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. You're welcome for clarifying.
Supermassive. Talking to you too.
Supermassive. Jesus. Where's Killzone? Just saying. Where's Killzone?
Be careful, Brian. They're already writing articles. Say no more.
Is this a running joke? Because AJ made the same joke on Monday's show. Anyway, let's take care of a couple viewer takeover questions before we get into the real meat of the show. Because 24 minutes in. The show hasn't really started yet, Wes. This is a good reminder to join our Discord because this is where you can leave viewer takeover questions and get your question read on the show. Yes, you can do it in the chat. Yes, you can send tips. You can do all sorts of things. But it's a way better way to get your question on the show by leaving it in the viewer takeover channel on our Discord, like PPO did. Anyway, it's hashtag viewer takeover. Do you think Sony has more first-party launch titles for PSVR 2? What do you think, Wes?
I hope so. I would think so, but what I think really doesn't matter. It would seem so. I mean, we were expecting 20 major titles at launch, and we haven't. We're about halfway there. So, yeah, I think so. I think that they're holding back. That they're going to try to drum up a little bit more excitement before pre-orders go live, which I would have expected by now. But again, that's just what I think, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think we're going to see a lot more big titles, things that people aren't expecting by the time, by when they reveal all the launch lineup. I think there's going to be a few titles in there from third parties and maybe some hybrid games from games that are already out there that now have, PSVR 2 first person hybrid support. But as far as AAA first party new games like Horizon Call of the Mountain, if you look at what Sony's been doing recently, they've obviously been holding quite a bit back and want to focus on each game and give each first-party game a lot of time to breathe. And that is, as you can tell, they've been doing literally nothing on the lead up to the God of War Ragnarok release because they want to make sure that everybody's focused on Ragnarok and everybody buys Ragnarok and they don't cannibalize any of their own sales by talking about any other first-party games. And I think that's part of the reason why we haven't seen a showcase yet because, why sell people on games that are coming up? Let's get their money first on games that are actually almost here. And so I think that Call of the Mountain is one of those games that they're going to want to really focus on. We're going to really focus on at launch. And then after launch, they'll probably show us more hybrid games from first-party studios. They're going to show us more built from the ground up VR games for PSVR 2 from first-party studios and kind of make sure that we know that there's stuff down the line to be excited about. But for launch, I don't think so, just based on what we've seen from them recently.
Yeah, I agree that they certainly have taken a more measured approach to promoting their titles on PS5, but they did have a few at launch. So I'm hopeful that the same will be the case for their new VR peripheral. This is something, I mean, if they're going to be successful in the VR market, and by successful, I don't mean 5 to 6 million units. I mean in the tens of millions of units. They're going to have to really put forth an effort here, and I hope that's not lost on them. And hopefully we get an amazing launch. And then if they want to go to the, one title every 4 months approach, then so be it.
Yeah. Looper the Underground Game Cat with the €5 says they aren't saying major anymore. Check out the FAQ section on the landing page. Yeah, I mean, verbiage changes from Jim Ryan saying it one place and then it ends up over here on FAQ somewhere else. I don't think that means anything. But we'll see. We'll see because we haven't gotten the full list of games. We know about maybe 6 games that'll be there at launch, and hopefully he's not referring to remasters. Hopefully he's not being like, oh well, we'll see Swordsman or Alvo. I don't think that's what he's referring to, but we'll find out what happens. And the other question comes to us from Uzik, which hashtag ooh, this is going well. Hashtag viewer takeover. Are horror games becoming so real that people start to experience medical conditions from playing them?
Certainly possible.
Yeah.
I've seen people get PTSD from less than what I experienced when I play Resident Evil 7 in VR. I mean, and I guess not for nothing, but the majority of VR enthusiasts out there are getting up there in age a little bit. So, a good scare might be the last thing that they ever see. So, I guess it's possible.
That's how I want to go.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That'd be awesome. What great publicity would that be, right? For a VR horror game, like we killed a guy. That'd be awesome.
without Parole finally gets some recognition and people actually start rolling in once I'm dead. I guess that could be a thing. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, dude, I was playing Affected the Manor, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, a little bit later in the show. And just because I never actually reviewed the complete edition, so I was just going in there to capture some footage. you know, like I drink a lot of coffee. I'm over caffeinated most of my day. That's pretty much the only way that I get out of bed is through a substantial amount of coffee. And you know, I know people that were 10 years younger than me the first time they have a heart attack, right? And that's just from poor diet. I mean, I subsist on pizza pretty much alone. Can only imagine all the shit that's being clogged up in those arteries. One good scare, I'm done for, right? And there was a moment during Affected the Manor where I really did go, I was gonna take the headset off and like breathe a little bit. I was just like, because it was like every single turn in that game is like, oh, what are they gonna throw at you? You know, whether it be jump scares or like just building up the tension. And so I did actually stop because I was just like, let me just wait a minute. I don't want to die while capturing footage. I'm not even streaming this shit. Not because I was like super scared, but just because it was constant, like and I'm like okay, you know how it is.
A little early for jump scares.
Yeah. So no, I absolutely think so. I think VR can feel real. So I don't think there's. I think that if you have any kind of medical conditions whatsoever, you should really be concerned and take it easy when playing VR. VR period. You know, it can be physically. It can be a lot of physical exertion involved in PSVR games or any VR games. And so, like, if you're not an active person, be very, very careful of that. And then, of course, with the scares, I think they could be really dangerous.
Yeah, and not for nothing, the reason I love horror games so much is because it makes me feel something. Like that's why I'm a VR gamer, is because like I can't do the things that I did when I was younger to kind of get that thrill and that rush. So we're living vicariously through VR.
Are we talking about drugs?
Horror games, perhaps, Brian, but I've never tried them. I hear that they're okay, but
they're pretty good.
Yeah, my addiction to VR very similar to earlier things that I took an interest in life. We'll say.
Yeah. Dude, let's get to our first news story. Not a super news filled week so far. It's been a little bit on the slow side. We're still patiently waiting for Ragnarok to come out so that hopefully we'll get some news on a showcase or PSVR 2 event. But we did get something interesting here, and let's jump over to the full screen so we can see this. Over on Twitter, and I don't believe this is the original tweet. I think that this Twitter account might have just grabbed this from somebody else and posted it. So I do apologize for not having the original tweet handy. But it says, breaking news, a look at the PSVR 2 has been spotted in the wild alongside the MetaQuest Pro and the PSVR 2 Sense controllers. And so this image actually is a little bit more telling than I think I would have expected it to be. I have seen the PSVR 2 dev kit side by side with a PSVR 1. And I was like, oh, wow, the prototype that they used for the dev kit looked a little bit different than the final model. And apparently, according to this picture, was actually bigger. Because this is because when you look at this side by side, I mean, am I wrong on this, Wes? The Quest Pro doesn't look that much smaller than the PSVR 2 in this picture. I know there's obviously a perspective issue here, but the PSVR 2 looks a little more compact than I expected it to.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, certainly next to that bulky Quest 2 in the background there, the PSVR is looking really sleek. It looks about maybe double the thickness of the Quest Pro HMD, which is really saying something because that is a sleek, small headset. So, yeah, I don't think you're off base at all. I think some of it has to do with the fact that the massive face gasket is being hidden and occluded by the Quest Pro there. But as far as the housing for the PSVR headset itself, like the front unit, smaller than you would expect, considering it does use Fresnel lenses, which are notoriously large.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. It is a little bit smaller than you would expect.
Yeah, I love seeing it out in the wild too. I love seeing pictures of it with just people who are like have it. Always makes me wonder, what's going on here? Like, who took this picture? Where did it come from? Like, let's track these people down and talk to them because they've got firsthand experience with it. We've talked to a lot of people who have firsthand experience with PSVR 2, but I mean, whoever this is obviously is developing something. You have to expect.
Oh yeah, this is a prolific VR developer. They have all the major headsets on top of the table. They have a Pico 4, I believe that is, underneath on the bottom shelf. If you look in the background, there's cables everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's boxes over there. I can see a case, like a travel case. Obviously, accessory manufacturers are sending them stuff as well. This might be someone who has a media channel, like a YouTube channel or something, as well as developing games, but clearly a game developer.
Yeah. So pretty cool, at least. It makes me feel good about, because for quite a while I was like, oh yeah, no, this thing's going to be about as big as a PSVR 1, and I was fine with, because every time I put the PSVR 1 headset on, it's like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. We say this all the time. It doesn't matter what it looks like from the outside. It matters what it's like once it's on your head. Yes, I like, just for pure shock value, I wanted them to reveal it and have it be like, look how fucking sleek this is. It's like putting ski goggles on your face. It's nothing, right? Just for pure shock value, I wanted PlayStation to sell a bunch of units just because it looks so futuristic. And so when it kind of looked like the PSVR 1, I was like, not terribly impressed. But once it's on your head, it feels like PSVR 1 or even lighter, as you know, obviously they've said publicly. PSVR 1 is still the most comfortable headset out there, and so even 6 years later, so if it's even lighter than that, even more comfortable, then I've got no complaints whatsoever.
Yeah, can't wait to try it on for myself.
Yeah. What does that bring us to? Oh Jesus, this story. This is really one of the best things ever. So this story actually comes to us from AJ. AJ has been he was putting this all over our Discord today. Apparently, according to an article over at Gamatsu, it seems as though R-Type Final 3 will have a PSVR 2 mode. Let's read this article real quick here, Wes. R-Type Final 3 Evolved announced for PS5 and enhanced R-Type Final 2, which, I mean, let's be honest. First of all, Wes, I don't know why they're calling it R-Type Final 3 when it's just... Why isn't it R-Type Final 2 Extra or Pro or Hyper or with Knuckles? Like, I don't understand the naming convention here.
I would say, how could you have a sequel to Final? If it's Final, then it's Final, right? The last one. This is the third Final. This is like Friday the 13th or something.
Final Fantasy would like to have a word with you, Wes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Granzella announced R-Type Final 3 Evolved for PlayStation 5. The latest new issue of Weekly Famitsu reveals it will launch in March 2023. Interesting time frame there, Wes. March 2023, when we all sort of expect PSVR 2 to launch. In really small print, for some reason, it says R-Type Final 3 Evolved is based on R-Type Final 2 and features improved visuals, over 100 playable ships, 7 exclusive new stages. Here we go. Brace yourself. Brace for impact, everybody. So sorry, Jiox. This is the best you're getting. PlayStation VR 2 support for takeoff scenes. Metaverse spaces for online multiplayer lobbies and minigames. What the fuck is this, Wes? This is fucking garbage. This is exactly what we don't want on PSVR 2. This is everything we've been complaining about for 6+ years. We don't want PSVR 2 support for takeoff scenes. Let us play the whole fucking game in VR, fine. But like, what?
Yeah. PSVR 2 content also in development, Brian.
This is the equivalent of like a dressing room mode in Mega Dimension Neptunia 7. It's like, we don't want it, man. Well, I mean, I'm sure somebody out there wanted it. Let me know in the comments in the chat if like you wanted the dressing room mode. Thing.
I'm very hopeful that this is just poor reporting, right? Because we are reading a 2-sentence write-up from a translation of a Japanese article.
Right.
Hopefully there's something lost in translation here, because it does say that there are metaverse spaces for online multiplayer. Who's going to go into the headset to link up with people to play with and then take the headset off to play. That makes no sense. What would make more sense, and I would be fine with this, by the way, you might not be, but if you could just play R-Type in 3D on a virtual screen, then great. I'm sold. That's a cool PSVR 2 mode, and I would like to see other games, other flat games, especially side-scrollers, adopt that approach. But if they're just expecting people to go into VR, play through a takeoff scene kind of as an added DLC type thing, like a extra content, meet up with some people, and then take the headset off and play, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard of. And
that's the line I was waiting for, because this translation makes us believe that that's what it is.
It can't be, right? It can't be. No. Surely not.
Surely not. Maybe. Let's err on the side of hopefulness, Wes. It gives you this first person in the cockpit view of whatever the fucking ship is called in R-Type, and you get to have this very cool Wing Commander type style takeoff scene, and then boom, it switches you, and then you continue playing the game in VR, the typical side scrolling fashion, right? That would be amazing. Cool. And so maybe they are being like, well, this is the special part of it, is that there's PlayStation VR 2 support for the full game, but we've included exclusive takeoff scenes in first person for PlayStation VR 2. That I'm suddenly hopeful for.
That would be cool. They could do a transition like the Minecraft thing that kind of zooms you out and into the game. Yeah. You do your little takeoff, you zoom out, you play the game in 3D. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Because, dude, I don't know about you, but like I have recently, without Parole sponsored by Eversource, apparently I had just fucking advertisements everywhere, man. It's like front and center. Are you a shoot 'em up fan? Because only recently I've always kind of enjoyed them, but like just kind of off to the side. I'd try one out and play for half an hour or something. Be like, this was fun, but never like take it super seriously and try to get good at them. Only like in the last year have I really, really, really started appreciating shoot 'em ups, and been going back through and playing the original Gradius games, the original R-Type games, all games that I've kind of tried out, but never actually attempted to get good at. And I fucking love them. I think Yuki is the game that convinced me I need to go back and play these more.
Yeah, I never thought of Yuki in that light, but you're right. That it is a kind of a shoot 'em up style game. So in that context, yeah. But I mean, in terms of classic side scrolling shoot 'em ups, I liked them a little bit back in the day. Back when I was playing those sorts of games. Really not since I've started playing VR. Although I like watching Dave play them on his channel. So there's that. Yeah. Dave loved them. Like he would have shit his pants for this article, I believe.
I think you're right. Absolutely. Before we move on from this, we did get a tip from Nihilist Ryan, the Game Feline, a little self-indulgent, but I'll read it anyway with a $5 tip. Says that you've kept this show going long after regular PSVR releases stopped coming speaks volumes to your tenacity, Bryan. You're an inspiration to us all. I don't know if inspiration is the right word. I'm creatively bankrupt, so so I keep doing this because I don't know what else to do. Maybe is the better comment, but thank you, Niles. I appreciate your perspective on my laziness. Thank you very much.
I agree with him for what it's worth. I think it's admirable that you've held to your guns here and remained PSVR exclusive throughout the last year, especially. It's admirable.
Well, it was certainly. I'll tell you this. There was a phone call that Dave Station, AJ, and I had a little three-way phone call about 2 years ago around this time. It was closer to the holidays, probably late November, maybe mid-December. When we said, hey, should we consider branching out and covering all VR? And that was the question. It was like, should we cover all VR? Should we just add Quest to the lineup? Should we just stick with PSVR? How do you want to handle this? And that conversation happened when we thought we only had another year to wait. So thinking back and seeing that was 2 years ago when we were like, man, we're going to be in real trouble soon with content. That happened 2 years ago is kind of mind-boggling to me. So a little peek behind the scenes. We thought we had a year to kind of like, keep the ship afloat. And turns out we had 2 years to keep the ship afloat.
And yet, 3 shows a week, like clockwork. Incredible.
I know, right? Switching over to the 3-day-a-week format couldn't have come at a worse time. It's all practice, Wes. It's all practice. We're just trying to get good before PSVR 2 gets here. That's all it is.
Right. Preseason. Right.
That's right. All right, man. Well, speaking of filling time with ridiculous content, it's almost Halloween. We're mere minutes away from Halloween, Wes, and you and I so far. This will complete our trilogy of GamesCast episodes. 3 weeks ago, or I guess 2 weeks ago, this makes week 3. We started talking about horror movies, some of our favorite horror movies, and then last week we started talking about some of our favorite horror games, and then this week we want to talk about some of our favorite VR horror games. Now, Wes, at some point on GamesCast, I don't know if it was with you when we were talking about movies or if I was just talking about Paranormal Activity on some other show with a different co-host. I do want to clarify something, a mistake that I think I made. I was talking about Paranormal Activity, the most recent movie, Next of Kin, and I was like, they even ditched the found footage format. That's because that movie is so polished in the sense of like not a typical Paranormal Activity movie where it feels like home video footage, like they're using professional cameras and everything like that. I tried to rewatch it the other night. It didn't work out so well, but I was waiting for it to switch to not found footage, and it never did. I was like, holy shit, this movie is found footage, but it's just like really professional cameras and shit, so it doesn't feel at all like a Paranormal Activity movie. Somehow I got that wrong. I still don't recommend it though. It's not great.
Does it take away from that aspect of it? I mean, does it not seem like found footage because of the camera quality? Does it detract from what they're trying to accomplish?
Oh, hugely detracts. It's just not exactly scary either. Like at no point, like very few moments was I like on the edge of my seat being like, what are they going to show? You know, and I'm somebody who does like the Paranormal Activity movies. Like I find them fun, right? Like kind of like fun little jump scares, fun little moments here and there. Great date movies, I think, right? They're perfect to like sit in a theater and like sit close with your date and like hold hands and like, you know, tense up every time it switches over to nighttime, because that's what the Paranormal Activity movies are, right? Daytime, you chill out, relax, you eat your popcorn. Nighttime rolls in and you're like, what's going to happen? And I fucking love that formula. It's like they've trained us to be like, you're fine during the day. At night, fucking get ready. It's a cool formula. Great for dates. Not that I'm going on a lot of dates, as I explained to Wes before this show. And just before we get into this topic, Sadukar, 7th Legion with the 2 quid says, you do it because the fans love you all too, Bryan. I hope that's true, because I really do love you guys. I can't believe that you stuck with me all this time. I don't know why you've stuck with me all this time, but thank you very much for it. I am humbled every single day that we do this thing. Okay, Wes, let's get into it, man. VR horror. I'm trying to picture this. I'm trying to get this right in my head because I want to put this into some kind of frame of context. VR horror for me started pretty much at the beginning of PSVR, because I didn't do VR before PSVR. I had tried a couple things out at friends' houses and, you know, tried like the Google Cardboard stuff, but almost at launch, because it was on the demo disc, we had the kitchen demo, right? And so even though Resident Evil 7 took a few months to come out proper, we got the kitchen demo, and then we got the original Resident Evil 7 demo, and then we got the midnight demo or something like that. They were like 2 Resident Evil 7 demos, both of them supported VR. And so for me, VR horror kicked off with a fucking bang, dude. Like, I was like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever, because here we are getting full-fledged PS4 games in VR with pretty decent fidelity, like even on the OG PS4, lots of foveated rendering, but still absolutely terrifying. Just Miles jokes a lot about how he's still stuck in the laundry room in Resident Evil 7 because he's so fucking scared to come out. But like I was very, very much in the same boat, where like I was scared to open doors, I was scared to walk down hallways. I was talk about taking off your headset and because you're scared you're gonna have a fucking heart attack, right? Like, because you're just so tense and you're sweating and this is fucking too much for me to handle. One of the scariest things I've ever done, man, was playing through Resident Evil 7 for the first time in VR, even on the OG. But I'm guessing, did it begin earlier for you, or is that where it began with you too?
Absolutely, exactly where it began for me. This was the thing that sold me on VR, and when I knew that it was going to be the most amazing thing I've ever done, because I bought my first PSVR. It was meant to be a Christmas gift, but we bought it in July. We had it. There was a great sale, so we bought it in July, and we got it in. And we're like, well, what if there's something wrong with it? Like, we're not going to be able to return it in December. We need to try it out. So all I had was that demo disc, and I put that thing in there, and I see Kitchen, I see Rush of Blood, I see Here
Rush
They
of
Lie.
Blood. Oh my god, how did I forget about all this? Okay, yeah, no, I'm so glad you're going down this. Oh, keep it coming.
All I played was this demo disc for like a solid week, and needless to say, this PSVR did not turn out to be a Christmas gift. We never put it back in the closet. I played those demos over and over again so much. It was so great. The kitchen demo, first of all, just the scenario that you're in is terrifying. I didn't know at the time that it was a Resident Evil thing.
No one
I
did,
could
I
just
don't
tell
think,
it looked
right?
scary. Yeah. I could tell it looked scary. I put it in there, and you're tied to a chair, right? You wake up, you're tied to a chair. There's a camera in your face, and then someone's in the hallway. Oh my God, terrifying. And then with the other two games, Here They Lie and Rush of Blood, full levels on this demo disc, and not the entry level. Neither of them are the first level. They're all from like the middle of the game, both cases. And dude, just amazing, terrifying. This is what hooked me. This is why I'm here doing this right now, is because of the impact that demo disc had on me.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing, dude. So it's crazy that I forgot about this. But leading up to the launch of PlayStation VR, there was a lot of back and forth in my head. First, it was like really expensive, and like the restaurant I was working at wasn't doing terribly well, and we had a lot of shifts where I'd go in and make like $10 and go home and be like, Jesus. And it was actually like PlayStation VR was literally supposed to be delivered in like 2 or 3 days from Amazon, right? We're coming up to launch day, and I was having one of those shifts at work, and they were like, do you want to go home? And I was like, there's no fucking reason to stay here. I might as well go home. I made like, $20 or something. And I'm standing there like at our bar talking to the bartender. In my head, I was like, shit, I've got to cancel this PSVR pre-order, right? I've got to, because I just don't have the money for it. And so I go on Amazon and I look on my phone, and it had just shipped. Like, it was literally minutes. It had just shipped minutes prior, like to the point where I can no longer cancel this pre-order. So like I was saved by fate, right? I was like, I got it, and I just dealt with the repercussions later, which has sort of been a running theme over the last 6 years. But again, so that's one of the many stories leading up to launch. And one of the other ones was like, well, what games do I pre-order? Right? What games do I get alongside this? Like, I don't know. Like, Loading Human Chapter 1. I don't fucking know these titles, right? Like, it wasn't like, oh, here's Silent Hill, or here's Killzone, or here's Resistance. It weren't games we're familiar with. It was a bunch of unknown titles. But looking through all of them, there was a game called Here They Lie, and that was listed on Amazon for months at $59.99. $60 it was listed as. And I'm looking at these pictures. In the pictures of Here They Lie, didn't even look like gameplay. It just looked like artwork, right? And in the description wasn't great. I had no idea what kind of game to expect. And I'm like, $60. And I was like, but it's a horror game. And I was like, okay, you know what? Like, because of all the financial things I was going through, and like not even sure if I could keep the pre-order, I didn't pre-order Here They Lie at $60 on Amazon. And then I get the headset, and there's Here They Lie on the PlayStation Store at $19.99, $20. And I was like, well, for $20, I'll take the risk. Let's roll the dice. And that was incredible. That was absolutely incredible. I was so shocked that, I don't know, that they weren't selling this with like gameplay videos, and it was just like this really mysterious game that seemed like had zero marketing behind it. But ended up being so memorable. You just played it last night, man. How did that go?
It went great, man. We did our full playthrough, start to finish, with our psychobabble philosophical analysis of it and what it means, which a lot of people struggle with, grasping the meaning of it. And, it's interesting. I did the same stream last year. Took me about 5 hours to do it last year. So I thought, okay, sure, we'll do it in 4 this year. We'll go through it a little bit quicker. But I started at 1 a.m., people stayed up with me all night. We actually had a lot of back and forth with the chat regarding some of the concepts that I brought up, and it ended up taking me over 6 hours to do it this year.
Wow.
And it was amazing, dude. It was amazing. I feel like we really put a nail in this one in terms of what the creators were going for, what kind of message they were trying to get across to people, what the game itself is. And it's interesting that you're describing the early promo material as just steals of artwork, because that's kind of how I viewed this game, as a piece of artwork. It's not really a game at all. It's a piece of art that's to be experienced from the inside and contemplated. But at the same time, it's not pretty. It's art, but it's not pretty. In fact, it's a mirror into the kind of the very ugliest things about human nature. And that's what I love about it so much. It's just so disturbing.
Why do I feel so at home there then? If it's the most disturbing parts of human nature, Wes, why do I feel so at home? I think it was one of the first, maybe the first, I can't remember, an early PSVR review of mine. And I kept saying that, like, it seemed like the developers like were intimately familiar with me and went into the deepest, darkest reaches of my own mind and were like, Bryan, we made a game for you. Now you feel okay. Now you feel normal. Here's where you should exist. It's fucked up, and it's because it's fucked up. It makes me feel good.
It's because these things that they're examining with this is in all of us. Now, some of us are a little bit more in touch with that side than others. But I think the point of the game is that this is inside of all of us. This tendencies towards violence and lust and depression, the things that this game touches on, we all struggle with it in various different ways.
Agreed.
Or some of us don't struggle with it at all. Some of us just, give into it.
Right. And those people make the news.
Right. Exactly.
The fact that the rest of us are like, we can just like leave it in video game form. That's what keeps us productive members of society. Aceville the Corn Cat, or Aceville of the Corn Cat. Fucking corn stuff his candy corn stuff has gone really too far. With a $2 tip, says, shout out to the London Heist gun range. It's really interesting. Not a horror game, Aceville. Get with the program. But thank you. This is so I would love to talk about Here They Lie for another hour, Wes, but I feel like not only should people go instead over to your channel and watch your playthrough of it, but also you and I can film a Why We Love episode on it, and we can take a deeper dive at another point. So don't forget patreon.com/withoutparolegames.
And I will be discussing it with my co-host later tonight on Strangers in the Night. Although I don't think Eric's going to make it all the way through it, so he's going to miss a lot of the finer points.
Nice. Do you find it?
Maybe I'm short selling, and maybe he's been marathoning it all day. But today's his first playthrough of it, so we'll see. We'll see how far he gets.
Do you think anything's topped Rush of Blood since release? And I say topped meaning like in its genre and as far as the horror theme's concerned. Do you think anything has gotten better than a launch title, Rush of Blood?
As a horror game, maybe, but in terms of like rail shooters, nothing comes close. In terms of roller coaster simulators, nothing comes close.
Thank you.
This was one of my big disappointments moving over to PCVR. Is I expected that there would be some really badass roller coaster sims. This is like the biggest no-brainer in the history of VR. Why aren't there 100 awesome roller coaster sims? There's not. Rush of Blood is still the best one, and yeah, man, it's great in so many ways. It's tailored perfectly to completely mask any kind of shortcoming that the Move controller might have. This game is perfect with Move controllers. I love it, man. It's great on so many levels.
Right. You're a developer. You're presented with this new technology, which is really just technology from last gen being repackaged, saying you always have to sit forward. You always have to stand within camera range. What can you do with this? And this is, I 100% agree. Not only did this mask the problems of Move controls and light tracking, but also seemingly hasn't really made many people motion sick. That was another thing. Like when it came out, I know a lot of people that I talked to were scared to play it because it's a roller coaster, and you would assume that roller coasters in VR would make you fucking super sick if you're prone to that. And I'm pretty sure, to my knowledge at least, please tell me in the chat if I'm wrong. I don't know anybody who got motion sick from this game. I think they were really, really cautious about that. And so it's exhilarating from a roller coaster perspective. Every single level, which this is what I find fascinating, tackles like a different fear that people might have. And so so many games are sort of focused on one particular thing, or like go into, say, the paranormal. But this is like, are you scared of spiders? You're going to fucking hate this. Are you scared of heights? You're going to fucking hate this. Are you worried about serial killers? You're going to fucking hate this. It's like everybody's gonna do big dead animals being thrown in your face and being hacked up with gigantic buzzsaws, right? Everybody is going to find something in this game. Clowns, right? I didn't forget clowns. Carnival barkers. Do carnival barkers scare you, US? Because if so, boy, do I have a game for you. This game, I would be shocked if there was somebody out there who was like, yeah, nothing in this game bothered me. I'd be like, wow, that would be mind-boggling to me, because I'm scared of everything. And so I found stuff in every single level to be scared of. This to me is really, again, for being a $20 launch title, it was really an ultimate VR game in my book.
I agree. And this is how good this game is. In spite of the absolutely terrifying imagery in the game, for the longest time, and I mean years, this was my go-to demo to put when I put new people in the VR. And I mean old people, I mean young people, everybody that I demoed VR to for a long time, it was Rush of Blood that I put them into. And guess what? Unanimous. Everyone loved it. My dad loved it. My kids loved it. Everyone. And they're not into all this scary shit like I am. So that should tell you something about not only how fun the game is, but what you were saying. It's comfortable, which is odd, because what makes the roller coaster section so good is that you actually feel the motion. You feel like you're moving quickly. Sometimes the track goes out and there's, you're in midair. You feel like you're in midair, but it's expert game design, right? They give you a perfect little small amount of HUD that you're sitting in with the train car. They direct your attention at certain things at certain times, and it all works perfectly. And you're right, it's perfectly comfortable, although it's completely not comfortable because you're constantly scared, and sometimes it gets moving up to breakneck speeds. It's just perfect. It's a great game. It's a shame we've never seen a sequel or anything else from Supermassive except for The Impatient, which probably wouldn't have even made our discussion today had I not mentioned it just now.
Yeah. Like I really, really hope Supermassive found their way out of the poorly mismanaged time that they were in after Rush of Blood, because reading the insider stories of that company, it's so sad that everything kind of got rushed, and no one was happy with the way anything came out after Rush of Blood. So hopefully they'll be back for PSVR 2. Hopefully we'll get a remaster. Hopefully we'll see maybe even a sequel or expanded director's cut would be awesome. I don't know if you saw this, Mike Kelly in the chat said that spider level, he only managed to play it once. If you haven't played Rush of Blood, cover your ears real quick, because that spider level was the first thing I believe that ever caused me to throw my headset off my face. I tore it off so fast because, again, spoilers, at the end of that level, spiders crawl up over the edge of the roller coaster cart, and then you look down and you see them on your legs, and then you see them climbing up your body. And I threw the headset off at that point, because I was like, I have a hugely irrational fear of spiders, and seeing them on me and crawling up on me, I couldn't convince my brain that it wasn't real. And of course, going back and checking it out, with a clearer mind, I was like, this does look kind of cheesy, but it didn't matter. It was VR's convincing enough that it totally worked for me, and I literally threw the headset off.
Well, they did a great job of not only giving you that in-game body, but having the arms match up perfectly to what your arms are doing in real life, which is impressive considering the tech that they were using. I mean, I mean, yeah, sometimes your arms can get out of calibration, but they made it really easy to fix it right there in the game. You don't even have to pause it. You know, as long as you use the recenter, your arms snap right back into where they're supposed to be, and yeah, and that's what made it so convincing. I think
Yeah.
when things seem to interact with your in-game body.
Give me something different, man. Give me something different. I want to hear about. I mean, we all know about Resident Evil 7. We all know about Rush of Blood. Most of us know about Here They Lie. Throw me a curveball, Wes.
Are you a curveball? Should we move away from PSVR, or are we going to stay inside the ecosystem?
Give me whatever you want to talk about, man. It's because the wonderful thing is that I think, as we've mentioned before, I really do hope that PSVR 2 ends up being this place where games that found moderate success or maybe no success on PC VR or Quest, find their way over and find a brand new audience on PSVR 2. Obviously for certain reasons, some games will do that, and certain reasons other games won't do that. But the fact is that I think when we're talking about VR horror, if we limit it to PSVR, we'll probably be doing a disservice to all the wonderful cats out there.
Well, here's the thing. Resident Evil 7 and Here They Lie, Rush of Blood, nothing on any other platform lives up to those. Those are the best of the best. And for those of you out there who love VR horror games, you're not going to find better moving outside the ecosystem. I learned that the hard way, obviously, thousands of dollars later. But there are things that are worthwhile to be played out there, especially on PC. And if you want to talk about stuff that might actually make its way over to PSVR 2, let's talk about Edge of Nowhere from Insomniac Games, which was an Oculus exclusive, a third-person game where you're following a bit antiquated in terms of the control scheme, but a terrifying game that puts you in sort of this icy, I think it's Antarctica even, but you end up finding your way into caves, and when you do that, you start hallucinating, and the hallucinations are absolutely terrifying. You come into contact with all sorts of different monsters, and I guess it's implied that maybe it's some kind of alien life. I don't know what the origin of these creatures are exactly, but it's a climbing game, kind of like an Uncharted style climbing game where you're climbing ice for a lot of it, but then you have long sequences of flatness where it's mainly a stealth game. You're trying to sneak your way through all of these terrible things that will kill you if they know you're there. And then there's a little bit of a shooter aspect to it. You have a shotgun that you find that if shit really hits the fan, as a last resort, you can use your gun. But tie this all together with some really profound cinema sequences and psychological horror. It's an absolute masterpiece of a game and something very, very deserving of a remake on PSVR 2 from the now Sony-owned Insomniac Games.
Tell me, like, watching this trailer has been basically gives me more questions than answers, because you mentioned that it's third person.
Yeah.
How I always think, and obviously, like growing up with mostly third person games, and obviously a lot of my favorite horror games from back in the day being third person, when it comes to VR, I always think that for maximum scares, that I need to be the person, that I need to experience these things in first person. How do you think that this was? I was going to ask you, do you think it was done in third person on purpose? But that's obviously a stupid question. Do you think it was? Are there elements of it being third person that are essential to this game working the way that it does? If that question makes any more sense than my first one.
Yeah. This plays like a third person game. The climbing sequences, especially, and there's a lot of climbing in this game. It wouldn't work the same in first person the way that they do it here. It's a lot of cliff jumping. So you have ice picks and you're climbing up sheets of ice, but there's lots of gaps and things that you have to traverse, and it involves you kind of jumping from one cliff to the next, and then sticking your picks into the ice, and then you kind of slide down and catch yourself at the last moment before you fall to your death. And I guess you could do something like that in VR, but you'd probably make everyone, or in first person rather, but you'd probably make everyone sick, and it would just completely dominate the game so much that everything else would get lost, and then it would just kind of be a climbing game and not so much a horror game.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, and I want to be very clear that like I think that there's obviously room for third person games in VR, right? To me, I immediately think if you're going to make a horror game in VR, why wouldn't you do it first person, like to make it as scary as possible? But it sounds like there's plenty of reasons why it was done this way. So I'm curious,
Yeah,
man.
and like especially and also with like the stealth sequences, a lot of these would be very difficult to navigate if you couldn't see the entire scene ahead of time and know where the enemies are at. If you were going through and trying to find a path through some fairly wide areas, it's almost maze like, and trying to navigate these from first person would be very difficult.
In the chat, Art Decoded says, "What about a horror game in multiplayer where they try to convince you that your friend isn't real, or maybe it's just your madness kicking in?" I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I loved The Thing on PS2. You get like these companions, and I mean, obviously, if you know the story of The Thing, one of them might be infected and might be. So I always thought that The Thing would make a great multiplayer VR game, and if the AI was good enough, it could pretend to be one of the multiplayer people, right? Maybe you don't allow for voice chat, that kind of thing. You like kind of hide some of the ways you would have normally figured it out. Or you play it like Journey, where you're like, you just encounter these people who are also playing the game type thing. And then some of the people you encounter aren't real people. So I think it's a great idea, and I don't think it's been fully explored in VR yet.
I think it's an idea whose time has yet to come. I think we're making huge advancements in terms of AI, and I think in the years to come, as NPC AI gets even better, that you're going to be able to maybe pass off uh, an artificial character as maybe something that's real. I think today it would be kind of easy to point out which one's not the real person, but I don't think we're very far off
Yeah.
from having AI that's really that convincing.
I've got a very important question to ask you. What are your thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's VR Help Wanted?
I have no thoughts on it. My thoughts are my son loves it. I don't see the attraction, but I will say this: the sequel, what's it called?
Security Breach?
Security Breach looks a little bit better, okay. And there are rumors that it could be coming to VR. I'm a little more excited for that one, but I haven't played it. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. I just want to throw it out there because it is a super divisive game for some reason. I don't know why. In horror, it's just one of those things. It's like comedy. It's all subjective. It's what works for you personally. But yeah, we talked about it a little bit before the show. It is. I think it's absolutely terrifying. I rank it up there as one of the scariest things you can possibly play. As you see, these jump scares that are happening over here next to me. These are the things to be scared of because they really are. They throw them right into your face and are not concerned at all about, your personal space. And it's basically trying to complete these objectives on time. And it's a bunch of mini games, and it just kind of some are more successful than others. But because you know that a jump scare is around the corner if you don't speed the fuck up, I think the tension builds and builds and builds. And for a lot of the games, you don't get to move. And so you're standing there in front of security cameras, hitting buttons, trying to open and close doors, save power, turn lights on, turn lights off. And I really think that it's one of those that when it works for you, it really, really works for you. So I always say wait for a sale because they have put it on sale with the Curse of the Dreadbear Halloween DLC for like super cheap. And so you get that shit on sale and you get to try it out. But I'm very, very curious to find out if like where people stand on it, because I think most people, I say most people, everyone's all over the place on this.
I think a game like this, it's really important that the mini games are engaging enough to make you forget about the thing that everyone knows is coming, right? That jump scare. Like that this game primarily relies on jump scares to scare you. And I'm a person that if I know a jump scare is coming, it's not scary at all. It's just stupid. It's annoying. But masterful game designers have this ability to distract you and make you forget about that thing that you knew was coming a minute ago. So if these mini games are fun and engaging enough to actually make you not pay attention to the fact that something might be behind you, then it might work.
Spooky Hootie Game Cat in the chat says, one of the best things about horror on PSVR is the sound. This is where VR absolutely will never be beaten when the sound is done well in VR. I 100% agree. Obviously, sound is, I think, important in all games when it comes to the soundtrack, sound effects, the whole thing, right? Creating a sense of tone, right, above and beyond everything else. And when you have the proper soundtrack, you can absolutely build tension without doing a fucking thing visually. But what else is important, West? I'm gonna throw you a curveball. Other than sound, what else is important to make a VR game successfully scary?
Well, it just depends on what type of horror that you're going for. And while we are on the topic of sound, I do want to shout out Dread Halls, which is getting some love in the chat right now, because I think that sound design is probably as important as anything with regards to building tension in a horror game. And Dread Halls does it very well, expertly, and that's one of the things that makes that game so great. But things other than that, I mean, I don't know. I think the pacing of horror games is really important. I think they need to leave a lot to your imagination. Let you fear things that aren't there, that might be there, and sure they use sound to do that. But obviously lighting is another big way. Not being able to see what's in the same room with you, let alone what's around the next corner. Things like this with regards to level design and game design, leave a lot of blanks for your mind and your fears to fill in. I think that's what separates the great games from the just okay ones.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where we heard this, or where I heard this to begin with. I think it came from like filming of horror movies, and it might even come from Jaws. But the rule of horror movies is that you don't show the monster in the first half of the movie, right? Rule of Jaws, you don't show the shark in the first half of the movie. You leave that to your imagination. You let it build up, because whatever's in your imagination is far worse than anything they could ever show you on camera. So I agree. But I also think that I will say setting. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Making sure the player is never comfortable is probably rule number one for me. Like safe places. Like every time you go to a Resident Evil save room, where it's like the music changes and everything, and you're safe there. It's like that's important, right? But the second you step outside that door, you just never know what's going to happen. And what I love about horror games, and I've talked about this probably fucking ad nauseum, is, and this happens in flat screen games, but it's not nearly as effective. When you walk into a room and then you turn around and whatever was just behind you is different, when you turn around and you see like there was a door there and it's not there's no door there anymore, right? And you're just like, shit, now you've suddenly taken that safety blanket away from the player. Now the player knows that the developers are capable of pretty much anything. The fact that I can't run back to the door that I just came through, now I don't know what to expect. Now everything is fucking off limits. It's like everything's off the table. We don't know what to expect. And that's something that happens in Rush of Blood so fucking eloquently during the mannequin level.
Yeah.
Where you go into this room and your cart is moving slower than it's ever moved. Like, and this is one of the times where you're just like, get me out of this fucking cart so I can run to the exit, but you're stuck in the cart, and so you just have to fucking sit there and deal with it. And there's mannequins over here, there's mannequins over here. You look at the mannequins over here, and then when you look over here, they're fucking way closer to you than they were before. You're like, who's moving these mannequins? Like, what's going on here? And that kind of shit is just fucking with your perception of reality and making you feel unsafe at all times. For me, is rule number one. That just works all the time.
I love this sort of surrealism in VR, and it's not utilized nearly enough. You can pretty much count on your fingers the number of games that do this effectively. But there's a really great sequence. There's multiple sequences in Here They Lie that does this, but there's a really great one where you're trying to navigate these subway tunnels, right? And if you pay attention, there are signs on the wall that tell you which way to go, and if you follow those, you'll make it out. But if you don't, sometimes you find yourself looping or lost. Uh, so when I was playing through last night, I pretty much just followed the signs until right up at the end. For some reason, I decided to take a right turn and go the way that I wasn't supposed to go. And what ends up happening is you end up going down this tunnel to uh, kind of a dead end. That's an information desk, right? It's a closed up, shuttered up information desk with a glowing red light, which is ominous in a black and white game
Right.
when there's a glowing red light. So you walk up to the information desk, and and nothing happens. But when you turn around, it's sealed. There's just walls now. You can't escape. You're enclosed in this room, and then all of a sudden, these. Should I spoil it? I mean, I know some
Just
people.
hey, listen. If you haven't played Here They Lie, just cover your ears for a minute here. Okay.
Yeah. So after you realize that the walls are blocked off, these flyers all of a sudden fly out of the information desk. They wallpaper the walls, and it's a missing persons poster with your name on it, and it tells you that that you are missing, and it literally refers to you as you. And I'm paraphrasing, but it says that you were last being monitored in your apartment, and that if you have any information as to your whereabouts, to hit the call button on the information desk. So you walk up to the information desk. There's no call button, but all of a sudden the thing starts bleeding, and the room kind of fills with blood.
Yeah.
It's just such an awesome, impactful sequence and a perfect illustration of the effect that you were just talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, and this isn't new to VR, Wes. Like, right, we saw this plenty of times in the past, and it was always cool, but never nearly as impactful as it is like when it's happening to you and you suddenly feel trapped and it's like, oh, we just locked you in this room. Good fucking luck getting out. Absolutely.
Batman Arkham.
Dude,
the final scene in Batman Arkham is awesome.
Agreed. And like we don't need to spoil the last scene in Batman Arkham for anybody, but that is, if you haven't done it, go do it. Such a great ending.
Yeah.
Yep.
That makes the game worth playing. That ending is just so cool.
Yeah. Agreed. I'm going to bring one up that I don't think a lot of people talk about. This one I think is only on the Japanese store, I think, on the PlayStation Japanese store. Even just getting it downloaded to my PlayStation 5 might be a hassle, but as soon as I can, because I had like 7 different accounts at one point. It's
I already know what you're going to say.
Daruma-San
talking about this.
got Koronda. Have you played it, Wes?
I have not, because I kept waiting and holding out hope that they would bring this to the North American store, which they never did. And I never went through the trouble of setting up the foreign account that I would need to buy it. But this thing looks fucking terrifying, Brian.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And unfortunately, I couldn't find a trailer for it, so I just have to play my review here. What it is it's a Japanese version of red light, green light. Basically, if you ever played that when you were a kid, you can only walk forward when the person ahead of you isn't looking at you. And so, obviously when you were kids, somebody would stand on the other side of the lawn and they'd be like, red light, green light, red light, green light. And every time they say green light, you fucking run toward them, and then red light, you have to freeze, right? It's very, very similar to that, except the person saying red light, green light is saying it in Japanese in a creepy little girl's voice. And she is a creepy little girl, and she is standing there with her back to you. And as you get closer to her, you realize that she is not a little girl. She is fucking a demon disguised as a little girl. And if you don't stop moving when she turns around, Daruma-san ga Koronda. Stop moving. Stop moving, because you're gonna get fucking killed. It's actually pretty challenging. It's a lot of fun. It's not super long. I think there's only 3 levels total. But man, is it ever worth it? I've got to re-download this, and I'll figure out a way to play it before the end of the month during one of my Halloween days.
Yeah, this should be one of this should definitely be one of your games, because it is such a simple concept, but the production is so great on it, and it really has that Japanese horror vibe to it. It's demonic and terrifying, and I could only imagine what the audio must sound like inside the headset. God, I want to play it. I need to do the steps. I don't even know what they are, but I need to go ahead and pull the trigger. I guess it's not coming. I guess I should just go ahead and break down and do it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it's coming now. This is, I don't know, what was this, 2019, 2020? I don't even know, man.
Wow,
I have no idea. But yeah, one of those weird hidden gems. I'll throw this out there too. Pupil Wandering was another good one. I believe that was only on maybe the Japanese and the Korean store. This is why you need multiple accounts, people.
Oh, really? People wondering, that's on Steam.
Yeah, it's not on the U.S. store, but
Wow,
it
I
is.
didn't know that.
Yep. And then I believe again only on the Korean and Japanese stores. And I think the Korean one is always the place to get these if possible, because the Korean, for whatever reason, the Korean versions tend to have English translations in them. The Japanese ones tend not to. So if you are creating multiple accounts and something's available on the Korean and Japanese store, try to get it on the Korean store first. Kowloon's Gate, which is just fucking weird, right? Kowloon's Gate was a PlayStation 1 game. Again, only in Japan and Korea, I think. It never came to the U.S. And so they made a PlayStation VR. Like they brought this game back to life. And you're inside like the walled city, the gated city of Kowloon. And it's just inhabited by the strangest people ever. And your only mission when you go into it is to collect shrimp. Don't ask why. Because I couldn't tell you. Has something to do with collecting film, and taking pictures of the thing that the game wants you to take pictures of. And it's just it. I don't think it's horror in the sense that it takes place in just a fucking weird ass world that doesn't seem to have much explanation to it. But is it super scary? No, it's just unsettling from start to finish. So Kowloon's Gate, Pupil Wandering, and Daruma-San, Koronda are the three imports that I gotta recommend. I'm gonna toss it back to you, Wes, man. Let's talk about something that people have actually heard of.
All right, let's do that. I keep seeing Transferance come up in the chat, which is one that didn't really cross my mind as I was contemplating what we were going to talk about today. So I'm sorry for throwing you a curveball here, but it's because it's not technically a horror game, but it's very dark, psychological thriller game. Some of the best production values I've ever seen in a VR game, and it's absolutely beautiful on PlayStation too. Highly recommend that game. It comes from a film studio, which is escaping me right now. But
Spectre
it's awesome.
Vision.
Spectre Vision. Thank you. I love Transference, and it's short, but it's one of a few games that's less than 3 hours, $30 price tag at launch, and I didn't complain at all. I gave it a great review, recommended it at $30. Transference is great.
Yeah, Spectre Vision, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a film production studio headed by Elijah Wood. Not headed by, he's one of the three, I believe, co-founders. And so and their mission statement for the company, for Spectre Vision, was to make, what was it? It was to make a horror movie that would eventually get like commercially recognized as like a success, and get an Academy Award or an Oscar or whatever the fucking, however they celebrate film success, right? It was sort of to bring horror into the mainstream and convince people that like horror was a viable thing, and not just this fringe thing. I forget the exact wording. I wish I'd prepared for that. But Transference is interesting, man, because yeah, I agree. The quality, the production value on this is so high. Along with Paranormal Activity, I feel like the environments border on like that photorealism, as close to photorealism as you're going to get on PlayStation VR or in VR until next gen. And it's amazing that they take the environments that are that realistic and then they just fuck with them, like right there in front of your eyes, right? Things change right in front of your eyes. Rooms change right in front of your eyes. And it does the thing we were just talking about, where you open a door, you walk through it, and then you try to walk back through that door and it's a closet, right? Like that kind of stuff is done really, really well in Transference.
Yeah, it's a puzzle game that's built around a dimension hopping mechanic, where there are different versions of each room, depending on which door you go through or which switch that you flip. Completely changes things, and the story of the game is just dark by the time you get to the end and kind of unlock all of the little sequences. And it it does have a little artistic value to it as well, as it examines um, perception and how everyone kind of lives in their own reality, and how the same things can be viewed through different eyes and have a very different feel to them depending on the person, the eye of the beholder, so to speak.
I agree. I agree. Um, all right, we got a couple more to talk about for sure, but I want to make sure we get these tips in before it gets too late. AJ over at PSVR Underground with the $5 tip says honorable mention to the Persistence end of deck 1, Home Sweet Home, and Immortal Legacy. It's like discount Resident Evil 4. LOL.
I still haven't finished the Persistence, man. It's so fucking hard.
It's funny because I obviously finished the Persistence before reviewing it, but then but going back in and trying to do it on a live stream, I die a lot. And sorry, sirens on my end. And yeah, no, Persistence is super hard. And when I look at they give you the total number of deaths at the end of the game, I died like 50 times or something like that. And so many other people that I talked to were like, "Oh, I died like 11 or 12 times," and I'm like, "What?
No way, liar, liar!"
Right. Show me a screen grabber. It didn't happen.
Right. Well, I mean, that death is part of the progression in this game. It's how you advance your character. It's that classic roguelike structure where you have to die to upgrade. And somebody says that they've died like a dozen times or something. I don't believe it. Not for a second.
Right. Yeah, the Persistence, the end of deck 1, Rypop, one of our moderators, loves sharing my little girl scream that I did during a live stream. I think it was my first playthrough. There's some scary shit that happens at the end of deck 1. And yeah, fortunately or unfortunately for me, that is all caught on film. AJ also mentions Home Sweet Home, Immortal Legacy. Again, great game, but Home Sweet Home, I think, is one that deserves a special mention. That is Asian horror, but it actually was localized for the U.S. And it kind of it does stuff that a lot of other horror things that we find in the U.S. don't do, because it's so deeply rooted in. Is it Taiwan? I always fucking forget, man. Like I'm terrible with remembering this kind of stuff, but there's all sorts of things that you're not terribly familiar with, right? Like so when you walk up something and it's like connected with yarn, there's red yarn everywhere, and you're like, why is this like this, right? It's
I want to say it's not Taiwan, Thailand maybe, Taiwanese. No, it's not Taiwanese. It's shit.
I'm looking it up right now, man, because like I just
Thank you.
Not going to be able to. Let's see. Thai.
Yeah.
Meaning.
Yeah, Thailand. Thailand folklore, right?
Yeah. And yeah, and so there's like stuff like that's connected with like all this red yarn, and you're like, and I think if you grew up there, you'd be familiar with that, because that's part of their kind of like horror mythos that they're familiar with. But I think it's even more scary when you're not familiar with it. You're like, what is the meaning behind this? Like, right? It's like you're actually learning about this other culture and the things that scare them as you're playing the game. Great game. Horrible game breaking bug near the end. But other than that, great game.
Yeah, while we're talking about Home Sweet Home, I want to touch on something you were talking about earlier about things that make horror games great, things that make them scary. And we talked upon lighting and limiting your line of sight. We talked about sound design. Something that always gets me is being pursued, right? So like, I think that the things that probably scare me the most in horror games are games that allow me just enough room to escape. Like, don't make it easy for me to escape, but give me a path. That way, when there's a pursuit, when I've been discovered, it's been a stealth sequence for 30 minutes. Oh shit, it sees me. Now I'm running away, be it from this character in this game, or be it Jack inside the mansion, or even the big, tall, goofy looking caricatures in Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife. When those motherfuckers are after you, there has to be enough hope of your escape even if you never escape, that chase, it gets me every time. Nothing gets my pulse up more than that. And Home Sweet Home does that very well. They put little hidey spots around everywhere. That they allow you to find multiple routes through the rooms to get away from this thing. And you're probably not going to get away, but you can. And the fact that you can makes you try.
Right, and the sound design on this is great too. I've always thought that the character's volume was way too loud. Like it always felt like it was in the room, even if it was like in the room next door. But the fact is that the sound it makes is so distinct that if I ever heard it in real life, like if I was laying in bed and I heard this noise, I would jump out the fucking window because I'd be like, "It's here!" But it's really really good. And so there's a lot of different stealth elements. And so trying to kind of like work your way around. I'm not a huge stealth fan, but in horror games, I am, because it's like, I don't know, if I'm playing Metal Gear Solid, like, I'm just going to shoot the fucker in the face, right?
Right.
But
exactly.
but in horror games, you're generally either unarmed or outmatched, and there's just no way you're going to survive something that's supernatural or paranormal because they always win.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of stealth either, but I don't think it's a black mark on the genre. I just think that most stealth games are done very badly. Like if you're going to have a stealth game,
Yeah.
you need to make people want to be stealthy. Like
Yeah.
there shouldn't be another option. You should have to hide. Like Aspire 1 is the worst for this. Like
Don't even get me started
it's
on
supposed to
Aspire.
be it's supposed to be a stealth game, right? And it does a lot of great things. But you don't have to be stealthy. You can run through that thing guns a-blazing. And I mean, sure, it'll penalize you in terms of like points or whatever or achievements,
Right.
but you can make your way through the game just fine. But back to Home Sweet Home, what you're saying about the sound is true. The character, you're constantly tracking it because this girl is always crying. But not only is she crying, she's also clicking a box cutter
Yep.
that she's holding and intending to carve you up with.
That's
So
the
yeah,
noise.
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Oh man, we also got one more tip here before we move on. It is a Shapeshifter R, the amorphous game cat with the €5 says played some Zombie U for Wii U and then later on PS3. Was it PS3 or was it PS4? I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He's wondering if either of us have played it. The survival element combined with the creepy atmosphere and permadeath is screaming VR. You haven't played it?
Oddly, no. And I do have I have Wii, I have Wii U. This is just one. I bought those consoles for my children. Never really played it or all that much. A few games, obviously. Played a lot of Mario, but never played out Zombie or really a lot of these things that took advantage of the motion controllers with Wii. I never really even played with.
Yeah. I think I bought the Wii U for Zombie U. And I was like, "Oh, this is really good," and I really enjoyed it. I only played the first few hours, but I liked what they were doing, and I liked how. To give you an idea of how it plays, Wes, you're trying to survive the zombie apocalypse, and so you're out there and you're collecting all this stuff, and eventually you're going to get killed. I think getting killed is part of this, and then it switches perspective over to another survivor, and you're taking control of another person, and you have to go. Very Dark Souls like, go find your dead body and pick up everything to retrieve your backpack and keep moving. It's been a while since I played it, but I remember having fun with it quite a bit, and I think VR would be an amazing place for it. What are we up to? Dude, there's so many games we could talk about, and we're like an hour and 40 minutes into the show. So let's each take one more, man. Let's each take one more.
All right. Well, if we got to narrow it down to one more time or one more game, I wouldn't be me if I didn't beat you over the head one more time with Wilson's Heart, which is an Oculus exclusive, an Oculus Rift exclusive. You can't play it on Quest, at least not yet. Although they did just pick up the developers, so maybe this is something coming a little bit later down the road. But Wilson's Heart is an all-time great VR game. Now, like a game like Here They Lie, it has technical limitations. Specifically, it's a teleport-only game. It's node-based teleport. So you're teleporting from scene to scene. Although the maps are big and you can make your way through them, kind of like a Blood and Truth, you're going node to node. Now, with that said, this game is all about the art. It's all about the storytelling. It's Hollywood level storytelling made by people from Hollywood with world class voice actors that you have heard of. But this is a love note, a love letter to the classic Universal monster movies. And what's really great about it is you kind of figure that out pretty quickly into the game, what they're going for here, kind of that spooky 1950s or 1930s horror.
Mm-hmm.
But it isn't limited to that, because when you get into like the real dirt in this game, I mean, there's demonic, evil stuff at play as well. So it's great. It makes you feel like it's just going to be that kind of spooky, all ages type of horror, and then it hits you in the gut with pentagrams and gore and all kinds of cool stuff. But it's not too heavy handed. That stuff only comes in spurts. The puzzles are very.
Are we back?
I think we're back.
Okay, let's see if the stream's still
We're
up.
back.
God damn. Is the stream successfully reconnected? Let me just make sure over on YouTube. Let's give it a second to get caught up. Dude, okay. I think we're back. Let us know in the chat if we're back.
Thank your lucky stars that you don't use Restream, Brian, because if you used Restream and that happened, stream over. It would be over. It would automatically hit in stream on YouTube for you.
Yeah, I hate that. Having to actually have this on the channel as two separate episodes, part 1 and part 2, would drive my OCD insane, and I wouldn't be able to handle it, and I'd have to make 7 videos just to get it off of the main timeline. Wilson's Heart. You said it's never. I think we lost connection, or it was on me apparently. We lost connection right as you were saying it's never coming to PSVR 2.
Never coming.
And I will say, Wes, this was one of the saddest things about the purchase of Twisted Pixel for me, because this was the game you and I were talking about when I first said, I hope PSVR 2 becomes this place where VR developers bring all of their former games and just kind of drop them on the store with some updated PSVR 2 graphics and PSVR 2 adaptive triggers and headset haptics and whatever else, and just give all these games a second chance. This was the game we were talking about when I very first said that for the very first time. And to have this game be now, or this studio, Twisted Pixel, now being owned by Meta, kind of breaks my heart a little bit, because I was like, this, because you recommended it so much. I am hoping, however, that I think that we need Facebook and Sony to talk a little bit more and see each other as less of a competitor, and more. They need to kind of team up a little bit in order to make VR a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more successful. And I think that having some crossover titles would really, really help that. You know, how great would it be to see what I just miss?
How have we not talked about Blair Witch yet? They just mentioned it in the chat, and I'm like, duh.
Well,
duh. That's a great one.
Looper the Underground Game Cat with the €2 says, Blair Witch, the house part especially. And I was actually going to finish off the conversation with Blair Witch tonight, so don't you worry at all. Here, let me bring up Blair Witch.
But anyway, you know, regarding your thoughts between potential collaboration between Meta and Sony, it's certainly not impossible. We did see Zuckerberg shout out Sony the other day during the Connect. I forget which game it was that they were talking about. It was a Sony property coming over to Meta.
Oh, Iron Man VR. Yep.
There you go. Thank you. In collaboration with Sony, they did send them out a thank you there. So who knows? It certainly isn't on Meta's part. You know, Meta's always been keen on the idea of collaborating with Sony. They've said it many times. So if Sony would accept this sort of an agreement, it certainly could happen.
Agreed. We'll see what happens. I don't think it's the end of the world if it doesn't happen. However, I do think I will never get around to playing this if it doesn't come to PSVR too.
Let me just say this incidentally. This game does not need a remaster. It's an old game, fucking beautiful, dude. The graphics are just gorgeous in this game. It does not need remastered at all.
Geisen in the chat says this could still be brought over to PSVR 2 since it can't be played on Quest, which makes a lot of sense. If the game isn't even playable on Quest, it's like, is it really competing? They might as well make some extra money on the release on PSVR 2. Again, I've brought this up before. It's like kind of like when Sega made like Game Boy Advance games when they were still doing Dreamcast games. It was like, well, you're not really competing, right? We don't have a handheld system. So I don't know.
And then Sega folded in terms of a console. That they were done
right
after that.
Despite all the tries. Yeah, dude, I do think we need to talk about Blair Witch just a little bit here. I did not have high hopes for Blair Witch Project or Blair Witch VR, as it's called, because I don't think Blair Witch has been terribly awesome since the first movie. And on top of that, the flat screen game got pretty rough reviews. I don't think a lot of people really enjoyed it over there. And on top of that, it was being brought over by Incuvo, I believe, right? Who had graced us only months prior over on PlayStation VR with Layers of Fear, which was an abysmal port of what I think is a pretty decent game. It still worked for me on some levels, but overall, the visual quality was really, really rough. And then we got Blair Witch VR on PSVR, and it was, and I was blown away, man. Graphically worked, custom designed for the Move controllers. Everything in this game seemed like it was given a lot of care and a lot of love, unlike Layers of Fear, and just ended up becoming one of my favorite horror games on the platform.
Yeah, another one of these games that in certain sequences makes you question your surroundings. I love it because it's one of these games, only a handful of VR games do this, where it puts the character that you're playing has mental illness, and it does a very effective job of conveying to you what it must feel like to have these sorts of issues. You never know. You're never sure of your surroundings at any one given time. Things can change on the drop of a dime. And typically, amazingly, it seems to happen when you're alone or you get separated from your dog or something like that. Now, all of a sudden, you start to have flashbacks to the war, or the house level at the end is another great example of this, where things are just never as they seem. And it seems like you're going in circles, and then you find out you're really not. And it's great on every level. The production values are super high. The control scheme is perfect. No matter which platform you play on, that camera matches the button configuration on Oculus controllers. Across the board, I've played every version of this game. It's great no matter where you play it. It absolutely is one of the best with regards to VR horror.
And Tornado is doing her absolute best to shut us down again. I don't know if that was her the first time, but now I'm starting to believe it might have been. She's just like pulling at everything. What are you doing? If you haven't played this one, absolutely pick it up. The house at the end feels like its own game, right? It goes on super long compared to all the other stuff you encounter in the game. There's so much mystery involved here. There are things that you can just easily skip over, and you kind of hear references to, and you'll think like, man, should I be hanging out here? Should I be trying to figure this out? To the point where you finish the game and you're like, I need to go back and do this again. I've played it through twice, and feel like I got just as much on my second playthrough as I did on my first. It was really, really rewarding. Good stuff.
Jumps around in timelines. Does that really well.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yep. Shout out to Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion. It's a cartoony game.
Shout out to Lies Beneath.
Shout out to Okay. Shout out to A Chair in a Room Greenwater.
Word. Shout out to Cosmo Dread.
Word. Shout out to. That's all I got. Okay. Good stuff.
I think it's a good.
Good talk.
I think it's a good spot.
Sci-Fi Game Get Henry. Make sure you mark all of those, just so we know, just to note that we talked about them. Just kidding.
I like Chair in a Room Greenwater. Not really a horror game, kind of like Transferance, but cool for sure.
Yeah, really masters.
Janky.
Oh yeah, super janky. Masters suspense, right? Like it's. I think that Wolf and Wood, the developers, are really good at creating suspense. I think they absolutely kill it. But then, yeah, Wolfenwood also has a major problem with jank. Everything, you walk into a room and everything in their games looks super polished. They go for photorealism. They almost nail it every time. Like their games tend to look really beautiful. And then something just goes horribly wrong. Yeah, you pick up anything.
You try to grab something and it flies away.
It flies away, or if even with it's in your hand, like it doesn't seem to be moving with your hand. Like everything in those games just seems kind of messy, as I experienced with The Exorcist Legion VR yesterday, which was crazy because I played through that game so many times without a single problem, and then yesterday I experienced a multitude of problems. Luckily, I was gonna say nothing game breaking, but I think in Chapter 4. That might have been a game-breaking bug that I encountered. I couldn't even finish it. So maybe. Looking forward to next gen, Wes, when things will be maybe slightly more polished, when we'll maybe get even more horror VR games, hoping that most flat-screen horror games find their way over to PSVR 2, more so than this generation.
And if we just get a handful of great ones with next-gen features, it's going to be the best thing ever.
I agree. And hopefully hybrids, man. Hopefully hybrids. Because, yeah, I mean, I can't believe we live in a world where BioShock doesn't exist on PSVR 1, where Outlast 1 and 2 don't exist on PSVR 1.
Yeah, God.
It's just insane that these games don't exist over there. There's no reason for it. So we'll, fingers crossed for next gen. Stop breaking stuff. What are you doing? Listen, you want attention? We're going to... Here, come here. Come here. Oh, who's a good girl? Come here. Oh. No, you can... What are you trying to do, huh? What are you trying to do? Don't you want to play 20 questions with us? Don't you want to play... She's so not happy with me. She's like, why are you touching me, Bryan? Get the fuck away from me. Why don't you meow for everyone? Why don't you meow for everyone? Look how big she is. She's gigantic.
Yeah, she looks huge, yeah.
Get out of here. Go ahead. We got 2 tips before we move on to 20 questions. PSVR Underground with the $2 tip says, shout out to the person that made GameCat AJ sent. Yeah, I don't know how I became the middleman in that. I forgot who sent it to me, and because AJ doesn't remember either. That doesn't help us very much. Genetic Blasphemy, the oozing GameCat-like mass, right over the $2 tip says, don't forget the spooky part of Astrobot. Who could forget the spooky part of Astrobot? She looks unamused. That is absolutely correct, AJ. Wes, I'm going to bring up the game for 20 questions on my screen right now. Are you ready to play 20 questions?
No, I'm never ready to play 20 questions, but we're going to give it our all.
Nice. If you guys don't know how this works, there's sirens on my end, and I have a game up in this head of mine, which is very, very faulty, so please forgive me if I AJ the fuck out of this. And then you guys out there, and Wes, you have 20 yes or no questions and only 6 minutes on the clock to figure out what game I'm thinking of. Yes, we stole this from GameScoop. No, they have no idea who we are, so it doesn't matter. Let's do this, man. Where is the clock? Where's the clock? Hold on. More sirens. Are you kidding me? I was going to say something really inappropriate. I'm glad I didn't, because I always say inappropriate things to the sirens when I'm not live. Where is... Everything in my life is just so inappropriate. On your mark. Get Dez. Go.
Is this a horror game, Bryan?
Wes, I was going to not pick a horror game because it would make it too easy. I knew this would be the first question you would ask. However, it is.
Have we spoken about it in this episode, Bryan?
I think the name came up. Yeah.
Oh, I should just say it right now so that I could. Has anyone ever gotten it in 3 questions?
Don't forget, if you get it wrong, you immediately lose.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think I don't think anyone's ever gotten it in 3 questions.
I'd like to know what the record is. If some game cat out there could tell me the record. You did mine last time in 9, which was fucking impressive.
Looper's the one who's keeping track of all this shit. Looper probably knows.
Is this game exclusive to PlayStation VR?
It's not. Were you going to get it wrong if you guessed?
Nope.
No. Oh. Wow. Okay.
And I'm thinking of is cross-platform.
Okay.
Let me think here. Is this game a haunted house simulator?
Yes, it is.
Is this game Affected the Manor, Bryan?
Oh, it is Affected the Manor Complete Edition. Yes, it is. In just 4.5 minutes. I mean, just a minute. I
could have had it in 3, dude. I could have had it in 3.
I wasn't even prepared to with the trailer. Jesus, there it is. Affected the Manor Complete Edition by Fallen Planet Studios. Came out last year. I've been playing through this. Dude, this thing is absolutely terrifying. Ooh, Looper says Dave got Robinson the Journey in 4 questions. You could have beaten.
Man. I should have went for it. Damn it. That's what happens. Let this be a lesson to all of you out there. You'll never get anywhere in life if you sit back and don't go for it. Jump on the grenade. Take your shot. That's the only way you're going to ever get anywhere.
Yep. This game, I will say, this is terrifying. I love, my favorite thing about this is kind of how cheap it is, right? Because it's so much better than going through actual haunted houses. I wait all year to go through actual haunted houses, and then I go through them, and I'm so disappointed. I swear when I went to the Factory of Terror last year that they forgot to staff it, right? It was like, where's all the people that usually jump out and scare you? It's like they couldn't even find people to like run the haunted house. It was terrible, and it's super expensive. It's like, I don't know, $30 or something to go through, and you can go through twice. It's like, who cares, man? Who cares? This is like $10. And you can go through, each run takes like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. There's technically 4 different paths to go through, right? So if you're playing with your friends, you can all take separate paths, and you can watch each other get scared. They do things in this. Oh. Sorry. Something just totally fell right in front of me, and it scared the fuck out of me. Sorry, the camera's just facing the wrong way. Yeah, my PSVR camera just fell off of its mount.
Mine does that every fucking other day.
Yeah, and your place isn't even haunted, so like.
Yeah, I hope not.
No, this was just a poor duct tape job. This had nothing to do with ghosts, but it still scared the fuck out of me. Yeah, this game is so much fun, and I love that it can do stuff that regular haunted houses can't. It can throw shit at your face. It can throw furniture around the room. It can obviously paranormal shit can just like jump up in your face. Everything's great, yeah, man, I really enjoy this despite the god awful controls.
It's been a long time since I've been in that Affected the Manor. I think I went into it once right when they updated it and put the new content in it, but like I haven't been back since then, and I think maybe it's time. Maybe we do that tonight. We need another title. Maybe I'll do that live. We'll just live go through one of the paths on there tonight.
Nice. Do it up, man. Do it up.
We've been known to do that. We'll just start as a podcast and break off into live gameplay right in the middle of an episode. So.
Ian Stanbridge in the chat says, Bryan, you'll realize it's haunted when the ghosts duct tape your camera back up for you. Oh my God. What's going to happen is I'll wake up and it'll be like, it'll be duct taped in my bedroom, and my PlayStation will be on, and it'll be showing me on my television, and I'll be like, oh. 3M
picture hanging strips. Don't use duct tape. There's these things. They're like Velcro, only both sides are exactly the same thing.
Yep.
And you can put your camera into the mount upside down so that the thing goes up, and you can hang your camera from different mounting points. I have like fucking 10 different spots I can just stick my camera to whenever I need to move it. And that's important, as we mentioned earlier, because different games require different setups for your camera.
I'm taking notes over here. Secrets of says, Bryan, watch Deadstream. You'll love it. I think I saw that go by on Netflix or Amazon or something. Definitely taking all recommendations for horror movies. Got to watch everything I possibly can. I've actually been watching the Fear Footage Phenomenon. It's a documentary about, the origins of found footage movies. And they keep talking about all sorts of movies that I've never heard of before. And so I'm taking notes as I watch it and sort of just... kind of blasting through old found footage movies here and there. Just watched The Last Broadcast, which kind of came out around the same time as Blair Witch, and not great, but still an enjoyable watch, especially if you're interested in found footage genre. Good stuff. Game Cat Photo Nutter says the light just came on behind you, Brian. I mean, I can see behind me. I don't know if you know that or not. I can see behind me, so that doesn't work the same way as if I'm in VR. Everybody go subscribe to Wes over at Virtual Strangers. They've got good Halloween content coming, not just in the future, but in the near future. Obviously, they got some stuff coming tonight. Go watch what they're doing over there. Also, join our Discord. Click the link in the description below. Consider following us and helping the channel out on patreon.com/withoutparolegames. Thank you so much to all the moderators. Thank you to everybody who helps this channel run. You guys are amazing. Jay Meow uploads this thing on audio services of your choice for your oral pleasure. It's fun to mispronounce it. And also Sci-Fi Game Cat Henry, or as I like to call him, Timestamp Game Cat Henry. Seems very reductive. He puts timestamps into these videos after the fact. So thank you, everybody who helps the channel run. Thanks everybody who helped out in the chat tonight for 20 questions and participated in the chat. Everybody who tipped and everybody who sat back and watched the show. Didn't say a goddamn word. We know you're out there and we love you just as much. Let's get out of here.
You the black cat, Brian.
Let's do it. SB in the chat says, wasn't Cannibal Holocaust the first one? It gets credited for being the first one. I think there were other found footage movies before it, and it's one that's on my list. SB, I know the controversy. I know the animal violence, cruelty shit. Like they actually killed like 2 animals in the movie, but still, I need to watch it because it's one of those things that just I don't know. Like I love horror movies and I love found footage movies, so I feel like I just need to fucking do it. So. Yeah, have you seen Cannibal Holocaust, Wes?
I'm aware of it. I have not seen it.
Yeah,
actually, so no.
Okay. And I think what is it? I've got a big question about this Friday's episode. I'm not sure what's happening, so everyone stay tuned. I'll keep you posted. Miles Dyer's last show with his band is happening Friday, right before GAMESCAST time. So he's going to be doing that and hopefully live streaming it because we'd love to see that. But it also means he's not going to be on Friday's episode, and I can only take one day at a time, so I haven't figured out what's happening Friday. So stay tuned, but I will be doing plenty of shit on the channel, including a live stream very shortly with whatever game it is that I choose for day 3 of Halloween week. But don't watch me. Go watch Wes instead.
Koronda.
Yeah, I got to figure out if I can download that. Good shit. All right, dude, let's get out of here. Bye, everybody.